So, well, what's interesting? So, I wanted to ask you this because obviously you have. I'm assuming because you've lived all over the country in different places, your understanding of people is probably much more different than mine. I was going to say in bad art, so like one of the worst movies ever made. And it's amazing how now people are finally realizing it's a bad movie. You remember that film Crash?
Yes.
The one of the worst. I think it's the worst film relative to budget ever made.
Well, I
Um,
mean, Brokeback Mountain and Crash, that they were the two leading contenders. They're both horrible films.
I wanted to ask about stereotyping people. Do you notice that there's any like trend? Like, like? I'm curious as a person who's observed people like yourself. What do you think really makes a stereotype, like compared to like a real person in real life?
So what makes a stereotype?
Like, are there any like reoccurrences that you see in bad art of what's versus like compared to like a real person?
I mean, if I have a character and it's following a trope, if like that woman I said who was plotting out her novel, I can know that, oh, in chapter 13, here the character has just come to a realization, and now comes something from their past. Oh God, come on! This tells me that the writer has no clue about the organic way that art should work, because they don't observe. If you want to be an artist, you first have to understand a little bit of what life is about. How the hell can I, how the hell could Melville have written about Ishmael and the whole crew of the Pequod, and Pip, the cabin boy for Ahab, and gotten this whole panoply of characters if he did not understand that these are individuals, even though they're fictive and maybe they were based upon real people who he knew. He understood these characters, but most artists don't. Most artists are doing the Whitman thing. They're trying to have that barbaric yawp into the cosmos, that I'm here. And this is one of the things that's so depressing about most artists. Not only do not the artists not have fun, but the only reason they're making the artists think, I'm here, I'm
Ego,
here. What?
vanity. I was
Yeah.
gonna say ego and
And
vanity.
this is, you just use the word ego, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that annoys the hell out of me, and even annoys Jessica more, is when 20 years ago when I was interviewed for this City Pages article in Minnesota, the guy asked me, if I was the best poet, and I said, yeah, I'm better than Whitman. I'm the best poet that I've ever read, and what? Well, how is that arrogant? I mean, I'm just simply stating something that I can back up and prove. What's really arrogant is people who would say, well, he's an arrogant motherfucker or whatnot, saying that stuff. He's not as good as this poet or that poet or whatnot. Did you read my stuff? Do you understand what makes good poetry? Or are you just there waving your fucking dick? I'm not waving my dick. I don't care. I don't care what an idiot thinks. My wife Jessica will look at these people who 15, 20 years ago wrote something about me on some fucking web board or whatnot. What do I care? These people they're mostly anonymous. They don't understand art. They don't even make a coherent argument as to why something is good or bad. Why would I care? Why, it's like, why would an elephant care about an ant?
I feel like when people make art, when people make art, it should become like part of them, like they need to live, but not for vanity. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like I know for a fact that when I'm not writing, I get really depressed, but it's almost like whenever I write stuff, I need to make sure it like in my brain it's objectively good art. I don't know if what I said makes sense because
Yes.
basically what
Well, why are you going to do it? Why, unless it's just intellectual masturbation, and that's fine if that's it, but don't put it out there. This is what say to so many. I've said to so many people over the years. I said, if art is just about stroking your ego or making you feel good, that's fine, but don't make me suffer for it. Because literally, truly, one of the worst things you can do is waste my fucking time with bad art. I have gotten so. I mean, I get 2,000 plus, maybe 2,500 emails a week, and aside from, and I'm not just talking about Nigerian scams and penis enlargement shit. I'm talking about people sending me bad shit, or I have a block list on my emails of probably about 800 to 1,000 writers of their emails, because I've said you don't have it. I'm going to say, because the 168th time that I send Dan a bit of doggerel, he's going to appreciate it. No, I mean, what do I have to do? So the only thing I can do is block them. You know, that doesn't make me a bad person, but don't waste my time. I read the first 7 or 8 pieces of doggerel you sent me. Why must you send me another 160? What did I ever do to you? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Because I wanted to. That's a really important thing is the approach of an artist because I obviously, like I said, ego and vanity are just awful. Pretentiousness kills art. So for you personally, you obviously you said you have to have fun, which is important because that's kind of a myth that's popular. You have to be depressed or whatever. No, I mean, so I was going to ask, like, when you approach art, do you tell yourself, okay, so do you say I'm Dan Schneider, I'm going to have fun making this, but it has to be great? Like, what do you tell yourself?
I say I'm going to write. I mean, there's no great imperative. I come home. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I was pissed off because there was this kid on the night crew who did something stupid and came down my aisle and started yelling at me. He's 19 years old, and a part of me is like, why am I doing that? So I told him, stop. He started raising his voice to me, and so what he had done, he had screwed up something in my department, and then tried to blame me for unscrewing it up. When the manager came in 5 or 6 hours later or whatever it was, he gave one of these things where, oh well, everyone was a little at fault. Well, no one was. We both weren't at fault. I had my work undone and screwed up by this kid who wouldn't take responsibility. So that pissed me off. So I come home and I write, and I was adding some things to my Sargon play, and in a moment there might be something that resonates from that incident that happened that'll make it into that play, and that wouldn't have made it otherwise. But I don't sit down and say, well, now I'm going to for my next great achievement is write a great play about Sargon of Akkad and try to show how someone who lived 4,300 years ago was just as human as you or me, Michael. I don't. I write, and again, part of the fun, part of the wonderment, if you will, of art is how these things evince themselves. How does Sargon realize in my mind that if you read that play, and let's say you read that play 4,300 years from now, and when I wrote it is the midpoint from when my play was read by someone and from when Sargon existed, how much of that did I really get? Let's assume that I doubt time travel in the past is possible. But let's say you could travel back in time and be like an invisible ghost and watch the real Sargon. How much of Sargon did I capture? But does it really matter? Because I'm not really trying to capture the real Sargon of Akkad. I'm trying to make an interesting story that appeals and has characters that appeal to someone in some way intellectually, sometimes emotionally, that gives an insight into existence. Why are we here? Why do we do? There's a great television show that if you've seen on Cosmoetica that I've mentioned many times called The Prisoner. And in one of the episodes of The Prisoner, which was a 17-episode show in 1967 in the UK, there's an episode called The General. And in The General, the prisoner, who is a prisoner in this village, he's an ex-spy who's been kidnapped. The General is one of these 1960s room-sized computers, which has about the computing power of, your cell phone probably has 150,000 times the computing power of this thing. But in the end of this episode, the main character defeats the bad guys and the computer and types in a question. And what is that question? The question is why? And that's the ultimate question. Why anything? Why this? Why that? And art is going to get to the why of things. You can know the how, you can know the when, you can know the where, you can know the who. But the why is the thing that you can never really know. Why are people religious? Why did Sargon of Akkad do this or do that? Why does Moby Dick influence people? Why did Ahab? You know, all of these things are things that can be evinced by art, and that's the important thing. Not how, for example, fidel to reality I am about Sargon's life. I get a few facts about Sargon of Akkad. I don't need to know if he had a rose-shaped tattoo on his ass. That's ridiculous. But this is the kind of navel gazing that most art is about. I just yesterday, as we're taping, or 2 days ago, Colson Whitehead won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. Colson Whitehead is a guy, and I think I when I was interviewed last year, I thought it was another black author. I forget who I mentioned, but he's a guy who wrote a fucking book called The Underground Railroad, in which he imagined, in his great leap of imagination, that instead of the Underground Railroad that took slaves from the South up to the North and into Canada to freedom back in the 19th century, what if the Underground Railroad really was a subway train that ran underground? This is the kind, and you just had the reaction that the other guy just had left. This is what modern America and modern American art and literature thinks is fucking deep. And this is what is so wrong. And this is the fucking guy who has won 2 Pulitzers. And it's not that I give a shit. Well, I'd love to make a living that I don't have to deal with snotty little kids at work like I just mentioned. But I'm not going to dumb down my shit so that it appeals to the same people who would find fucking this kind of direct good, because no one is going to read this fucking shit in 50 or 100 years, and you could give it 10,000 Pulitzers because it's Drek.
So you believe that it's obviously I haven't read it, but I'm assuming what you're talking about is like a gimmick, like the whole thing is based around like
it's a gimmick
having a merit.
Yeah, it's gimmick art, and gimmick art is one-dimensional. Great art is not one-dimensional, because you can go back to it. You can go back to Mira, and the 17th time, 2 days before you drop dead, the 17th time that you see Mira, you'll see a little scene someplace, or you'll see maybe a tear running down one of the characters' eyes. You say, I never noticed that before.